Hey, this is Adam. And with the CGC price increases in the news, I wanted to record a few of my thoughts and share them with people. I have been a CGC customer for 5.5 years and have submitted well over 500 books for grading. So I have some perspective on this, and I see a lot of takes floating out there. So I thought I'd share mine. I don't have any inside information into CGC's business decisions, but I thought my perspective might be helpful to people. Happy to also answer questions. I'm on the Comics for Fun and Profit Slack channel almost every day, so I encourage you to become a patron there. You can also reach out to me on Twitter at Paz Comics. That's at PASZ Comics. So the main points I wanted to make today. First and foremost, CGC is obviously a for-profit private company, and the price increases are a business decision where they look at their numbers internally and the management decides that they should raise prices. There are a few certainties in life, but one of them is that every year the price of a postage stamp is going to go up. And I think it's also certain that over time, CGC will continue to increase their prices for grading. Now, regarding modern books, I see this take a lot that, oh, they're getting flooded with modern books and that's impacting turnaround times. It's taking, I've had books sitting there for 6 months that I have no idea when I'm going to get back. And people are just submitting a bunch of direct and clogging up the pipes. And this price increase is somehow going to address that problem. Again, I don't have any inside info here, but I kind of doubt it. And I also don't see why CGC would want to get out of this revenue stream of modern books. So I'm sure they want to fix their pipeline issues, but I'm sure they're happy to get your, hot off the presses Thor 20 and grade it for you. I think they will continue to cultivate and refine their different tiers. They have fast track, they have convention drop off, and basically, just like in this day and age, you can pay more money and get through an airport security line more quickly if you choose. You'll also continue to be able to pay more and more for the convenience of faster turnaround times. So, CGC is a luxury business fundamentally, and they're going to focus a lot of their decisions on the high end customers. So if you're on the bottom of the totem pole, just submitting, a handful of books each year, and you don't want to spend a lot of money, you probably need to be prepared to wait. So regarding the price increases, again, I mentioned that I started submitting books to CGC back in 2016. I don't know what their previous history of price increases was, but I do know that between 2016 and 2021, when they were acquired by Blackstone, not the tire company, some other company named Blackstone, which, yes, sounds like an evil corporation from some 80s action movie, there were no price increases. And if you had the full membership, you could get the books moderns graded for less than about $18, I think was the price. And it's now inched well above 20. And again, it depends on your membership tier, and there's various different costs to take into account. At some point, I may record, happy to answer questions on the pricing and strategies for dealing with the pricing. Or maybe at some point I'll go into more detail about that. But I wanted to focus mostly on the news right now. So yeah, 2021, they're acquired by Blackstone. And interestingly, there was a price increase right around the time of the acquisition. I assume that this occurred because they were trying to make their numbers line up better to optimize for the acquisition. So, people are looking at all their financials and trying to decide how much is it worth to even buy CGC, right? And once Blackstone has acquired CGC, the people involved in that acquisition want to make themselves look smart and want it to continue to perform as a profitable unit. And I think that might also be what's behind the price increases that we're seeing now. So like I said, prices are going to continue to go up. And at the rate that the prices are increasing, I don't really see that it's going to have, significant impact. I have no idea how many books are submitted per year. Are those numbers going up or down? What's their break even, etc. So this is pure speculation on my part. But given where the overall industry is at and the growing interest in these high-end collectibles, I would think CGC's in a pretty good place. And one of the reasons they're probably having all these issues with turnaround time is because more and more people are submitting books, and more people sort of see it as a good investment and just want to get involved in this subcategory of the collecting hobby. The most recent price increase was about 8%. I believe the 2021 price increase was also along those lines. I think they could sustain that kind of price increase year over year for a long time, probably without driving away too many customers or impacting the bottom line negatively. So, will this convince people to leave CGC, go to their competitors, stop submitting so many crappy moderns and other junky books from the 90s? I kind of doubt any of those things will happen. Regarding driving customers to competitors, I actually think, again, as CGC is a luxury business, I think increasing the prices to some degree increases the cachet of CGC books. I think they could probably increase prices significantly more, on the order of up to like $50 for modern. And I'm not even sure that would impact the bottom line. And they probably even thought about that internally. It might cause a revolt. I don't know. But there's something to be said, right? For people buy a Mercedes for a reason. That's like the brand. And CGC has the brand, whether their grading is significantly better or worse than any competitor. You're buying the label to some degree. Now, you might have noticed the introduction of the vanity labels a couple years ago, mainly for Marvel books, but they're like, you can get a custom label for $5. That's just another example of how this company is trying to cultivate a business around higher end customers. So if I'm going to a comic shop, paying $4 for a comic, and then paying $18 to get it slabbed, I'm the low end, right? And there's probably very little profit for CGC on that kind of customer, except at volume. But if I'm sending in, my Silver Age, Golden Age books, if I'm paying hundreds of dollars to get signatures on those books, get them pressed, doing fast track, getting a fancy label on it, etc. At a certain level, if your book is worth in the tens of thousands, $50,000, you're not going to think too much about paying $300, $400, $500 for the grading. You're just not. And those are the whales that will probably be the biggest revenue drivers for CGC. And again, when you think about the competitors, if you had those books to grade, seems kind of a no-brainer to go with CGC. Your Hulk 181, 9.8. If it's a CBCS label, it might easily sell for $500, $800 less than a CGC label. To wrap up, as an individual comic fan, comic collector, should you even care about any of this? Or what should you do? How do you get in on the action? Should you care? Probably not. But if this is an area of collecting that interests you, I'll just end with a couple tips and maybe follow up someday. So first of all, you don't need to get your books graded by CGC or any other grading company, period. If you're sitting on a collection from your childhood, it's actually very hard to assess that value of that collection. You probably have a lot of sentimental attachment to it. And, you can pull a few of the best books, send them in somewhere, get a third party take, and almost certainly they will be lower grade than you think. At least that's what I think is the case with most people, unless you're already a very good grader. Grading is a very fun part of the hobby for me. It's not for everybody, but it is a skill you can get better at. And so if you're just sending in books to see what the grade comes back, that can be fun. You can do that with the lowest tier membership. And, again, you just got to be prepared to wait. So send them in, forget about them. And then one day you'll get a nice box with a big surprise. You may not even remember what books were in there. Beyond that, you can buy books graded, and you can buy them pretty cheap in a lot of different places. Keep an eye on auctions. So if you've got your first appearance of Elektra or first Frank Miller Daredevil, something like that, you're thinking about getting it graded, might be better off just shelling out a couple $100 and buying a pre-graded one. Will save you some time, and it might end up saving you money as well, or certainly could be break even. And you don't need to grade your books to sell them. If you take some really good pictures, you can put them up in auctions. You can use third parties. There are more and more springing up. I've been using mycomicshop.com this year to sell a bunch of my stuff. This is not a commercial for them, but I found they work well for me and what my goals are. And what's nice about them is that they grade your books for you, and their grading is highly respected. So if you have some good Silver Age or key Bronze Age books, you can sign them with a company like that, and they'll do the grading. You don't even have to worry about slabs, or they might submit them to CGC for you as well. So worth asking around about those sort of consigners. Maybe this all sounds a bit too much like I'm defending CGC or I'm happy about the price increases. And trust me, I'm not. My membership comes up in the spring, and I'm not planning to renew with them at the tier I'm at. I've graded what I've wanted to, and I'm changing my collecting focus to some degree. So it's not really worth it to me to pay whatever $400 or $500 for the best grading tier. I can send in a few books a year at the lowest tier, and that'll probably be fine for me, at least for a few years. And in terms of what it means for the industry, we've seen some pretty dramatic price increases in general, especially on Marvel, Silver Age, Bronze Age keys. It sucks that it's no longer really possible to buy some books, early Fantastic Fours and Spider-Mans. At the same time, it does mean that the industry appears to be successful and in many ways thriving. And I think the CGC price increases point to that as well. And what's the alternative, right? The alternative is nobody's interested in comics or comic collecting. And I would say 15 years ago, people were talking about everything going digital and that it would basically be the end of comics. I'm pretty happy that didn't happen. And in some ways, comics seem as big as they ever have in my lifetime, including all the movies. And that's exciting to me as a lifelong comic fan. So take the good with the bad and make good decisions for yourself as a collector, and have fun, and hopefully make a little profit too. Again, do support Kyle and Drew and Jason, who's working on the podcast a lot as well. Your patronage and subscriptions and good reviews all help those guys keep this going. And we'll continue to have many interesting discussions on this and other exciting topics in comics.